Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. I have played up to, I believe, Canto 7, which is Don Quixote's Canto if you are new here. So if you are interested in checking it out, I think you could just go to the live stream tab and then check out the VODs there. I started a while back, but I took a pretty long break because I was getting really burnt out, but I am back. And so I will be checking out more videos. I'm in the process of kind of relearning the game because it has been a while. And thankfully the tutorial is a lot more up to date. So I will be checking out a few new people playing the game and just writing down notes and things like that. But if you do have recommendations on how I can further improve my gaming for Limbus Company, do let me know, aside from watching more videos, because that's not going to help me. I'm a more of a gotta do it kind of thing. And some concepts are still not like fully, I guess, processed in my head. Anyways, aside from that, welcome again. Today we're going to be reacting to why aren't more people talking about Limbus Company. Now, this video was recommended to me by a community member. Thank you. And I do wonder what it's going to be talking about. I assume it's like a Limbus Company review. I did get permission from the content creator to react to this video, so thank you for that. So let's enjoy it and learn more about Limbus Company, unless I already know everything, which might be the case actually. I guess we'll see.
Limbus Company, you are better than a well-beloved, because... wait, do you hear that?
Yes.
Sounds like... oh, God. I haven't even started the video yet!
관리자. 나리!
Oh no, Faust, what was that? The problem with Limbus Company.
Into the cult of Project Moon, thanks to a little game known as Limbus Company, that has since extended to Library of Rowena and as much of Lobotomy Corporation as my mental can handle, because what the fuck even is going on at this point? For the last 6 or so months, it's no exaggeration.
I do have to say, I think I do prefer Lobotomy Corporation over Library of Runa. Not that I dislike Library of Runa gameplay-wise, but I feel like Lobotomy Corporation is a little bit more engaging for me. But, and I say this with a really huge but, the games are still really difficult for me, and I don't have a PC anymore, so I can't really complete it, so that's why I'm watching these videos, but yeah. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the Lobotomy Corporation, or do you prefer Library of Runa, or did you not play any of them and you just like Limbus Company? Let me know down below.
To say that I've fallen in love with these games. The world, the story, the characters, and the overall feeling of having a gacha game elicit actual emotion out of me. Something other gacha games could only wish they could do. Genshin. The world is lived in, dark, sick, and bereft of human.
Well, I know we like to joke on Genshin a lot, but I do have good memories of it, so I'm personally not going to dig into that. I did quit the game, mostly because I have too many games I have to play, and quite frankly, I already have all the characters I want, so I just don't feel the strong desire to go back. Although I do look upon the game with a fondness, because I did enjoy it back in the day. When I think it was my first game, my first introduction to gacha games. So I'm not unhappy about the game. I'm not sure how it is now, but I look at it with quite a lot of fondness because of it. So either way, I do think that Limbus Company is more to my taste, mostly because back when I was younger, I really liked psychological horror and mystery and gore. And a lot of the gacha games don't really seem to have that kind of aspect to it. So it's really nice to see like the grittiness of Limbus Company when I first experienced it. Not that there isn't grittiness in like other games too, because some games actually do have it, but there's just something different and refreshing about Limbus Company that I quite enjoy, and it really stands out to me, and I can't help but, even during my break, I kept thinking about Limbus Company, and I would miss the characters because they're so developed and iconic in that sense. Just you look at them as people, and when you start looking at them as people, not just as characters, and you can relate to their struggles, then they start to hold a special place in your heart. And even if you stay away from the game for a long time before coming back to it, or maybe never, you'll still look at the game with quite a lot of positivity and fondness for that reason alone.
Human righteousness. The characters are their own, capable of growth that persists and never truly feel cast to the wayside. The main character is not overtly a self-insert, experiences their own growth.
That's true.
And their own massive flaws that matter, and isn't treated as a hyper-competent do-it-all that everyone revolves around. I like how I'm not treated as though I'm an imbecile needing to understand bosses or get a grasp on unit kit synergies. I like the team building, I like the constant curiosity the dialogue breeds, I like how the universe...
I don't like the gameplay. I mean, I'm okay with the gameplay, but then the moment I feel like I thought I understood it, and then something else happens in the next story chapter, and I'm like, okay, so I guess I didn't really understand anything. I have a long way to go, don't I?
His concepts are easy to understand and not bogged down by a bad case of now-nitis.
Now, this is something that I find to be very fascinating, where instead of using like weird words that most people aren't really going to remember, I do like the fact that they use words that are very easy to remember as a normal person. Like office, we know what an office is. Association, of course we know what that is. Syndicate, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Distortion, light, like none of the words are, I guess, weird. That's the easiest way for me to put it. It's not overly done, so it's much easier for someone like me who has a really bad memory. I have a hard time remembering names, and so just having a game where they don't use like weird terms to describe something makes it a lot easier. But they don't really seem to do that for the enemy and character ability descriptions, which I don't really understand why. And that was actually one of the things I was really frustrated by. Like, I really enjoyed the game, but I had a hard time understanding. Like, I would read the enemy ability and description, and it would sort of make sense to me, but because they like say it in such a weird way and then use these like strange words to describe something that could have been described in like 3 words, makes it a lot more difficult for someone like me who, you know, doesn't really game often and is just a casual, basically trying to understand what is this. It makes it even harder than it should be. So back when I was playing it, thankfully I had a lot of backseaters. I know most people like say like, oh, how dare you backseat to like the community, but I really needed the backseating. So when they backseated and they explained it, it was a lot more like, oh, now I understand. But sometimes the audience tends to argue with each other like, no, that's wrong, it should be this. And then, you know, I kind of get stressed over that, because then it's like, okay, then what is it meaning? So it feels like I wish they had done something like this, make it easy to understand, but also in the enemy descriptions and even the character abilities, because sometimes it doesn't even make sense either. I'm starting to remember all the things I was frustrated by, but at the same time, I still love this game. Why do I do this to myself?
But most of all, I like how the gacha game doesn't really feel like a gacha game.
That's true.
Yet, between all those thoughts, I can't help but wonder why more people aren't talking about Limbus Company. Project Moon is a relatively small indie game company based in South
the
Korea,
snapping.
consisting of around 50 employees. Their repertoire consists of Hell on Earth, Peak Cinema, and the worst of the 3, apparently. It's not hard to get the idea that they really came from nothing, as it were, with Lobotomy Corporation looking like it had the budget of 5 cents in a bowl of lint, which was kind of the case because it was a...
You know, I actually like the simplicity in the artwork for Lobotomy Corporation. And the reason why I say that is that whenever I watch, what was it called? Game Awards show? And they always show trailers. It feels like they're like overdoing it with the fanciness and like the visuals and stuff. And while there is some good in that, I do wonder if there will ever be a time when more simplistic and interesting, unique looking artwork in games and in like the sprites and stuff would be a lot more popularized. I know it used to be popular back in the day, at least as a past normie who is starting to go back into game, or who is actually getting into gaming a little by little. I believe it was popular back in the day. Please correct me if I'm wrong. You guys played more games than I do, honestly. I only started genuinely playing games since like 2 years ago or whenever this channel started. I can't remember. But I do like the style of the artwork in the Bonami Corporation because of the way that they drew everything and the way everything looks. It just feels a lot more simple but complex, but a lot more simple, so it's easier for me to grasp things a lot faster. Maybe I'm just the type that likes minimalistic, simplistic styles. I don't know.
Originally a failed Kickstarter game, Lobotomy Corp was marketed as an SCP-inspired monster management simulator, garnering around $3.3 thousand of the initially proposed $40,000 goal with its small demo. And for most people, well, that'd be that. No funding means no development, which should have meant no game. But my cute CEO, Kim Ji-hoon, said no, I don't think that's the case, and ended up tirelessly working with the feedback given to them, incorporating the limitations put forward by the game engine and lacking art assets into the story itself, so there was at least a reason for it. What the game lacked in visual interface ingenuity, they made up for with gameplay and story ingenuity. Kim Ji-hoon and his buddies from the anime club would make this game Kickstarter be damned. Make it a steaming pile of dog shit! Because for all the violent midnights and low-key soft-lock abnormality combinations you can unfortunately stumble upon, Lobotomy Corporation was a wonderfully thought-out game that introduces the beloved.
I like how she's right here. Oh, I wish I could go back a little bit. Yeah, right there. The one that appears in the magical girl Don Quixote. I didn't get her. I didn't get her at all, but although I did pull on that banner, I just didn't get any of them. And by then I didn't have any lunacy, so that kind of made me sad. Not gonna lie. I didn't get Don Quixote in any of the banners. It's like she wants to avoid me. But I like how I see her now, so that's how she looks.
Unfortunately stumble upon, Lobotomy Corporation was a wonderfully thought-out game that introduces the beloved concepts of the PM-verse and spurred on the creation of Project Moon's other more well-crafted titles. Concepts like the setting of the city, a complete dystopia lacking in humanity, or perhaps is poisoned by it. After all, only those deemed human may preside within its walls. It's like Disneyland for psychopaths and sociopaths, capitalists, nihilists, and fucking clowns. One hell of a place to take up the art of comedy. But Lobotomy Corporation plants the seed, pun intended, that even in a place as utterly wretched as this, hope can be just around the corner, grown within the very people that seem so clearly woeful. And goddamn did that game sell. The tagline of an SCP management game really worked wonders, turning some pretty large heads around. And I can't even really name another game that has that same premise. Does My Singing Monsters count? Also, don't play the game unless you hate yourself. It's like 150 hours of pure unadulterated pain.
The good thing about the Lobotomy Corporation was that it was really fun seeing, not seeing my employees, aka community members, die. that was the most entertaining. So I do think that it's a fun game to play when you're using your audience as the employees and making sure they don't die.
The direct sequel to Lobotomy Corporation, Library of Rowena, was an excuse to develop the strongest part of the previous title, the world itself. It very much helps that the main protagonists are a clueless sentient robot who wishes to learn more about the city, and a denizen of the city who knows its ins and outs perhaps a little too intimately. Its gameplay loop, a deck-building, turn-based RPG system with some RNG sprinkled.
I really do not like turn-based games much. That's something that I realized with Reverse 1999. Although I really enjoyed the story for that, I just can't get over the gameplay. I tried really hard to enjoy turn-based. I even played Honkai Star Rail. I still couldn't get into it. And it's just, no matter how good the story is, if I can't stand the, gameplay as much, then it's going to be really hard to stick to. Thankfully for Limbus Company, I actually do enjoy the game a lot more. Although it is turn-based, it strangely doesn't feel like it at the same time. I don't know why. Maybe it's the brawling part? I'm not really sure.
Then allowed for a multifaceted experience many people loved. loved so much they made it the monetization model of their next game, but we'll get to that. Love Arena wasn't as popular as Lobotomy Corporation despite it being a massive step up for the company. That's not to say it didn't do well, it did. Simply the premise wasn't as immediately interesting as something so clearly as inspired as its predecessor. People who played the game more than likely came from Lobotomy Corp wanting to learn more about the universe and the characters. Also the music, Jesus, don't get me started. From the floor themes to any Millie song, I'm sure you've heard something from this game before without realizing it. This 2-for-2 record when
So
it came
good.
to games would soon become 3-for-3 with the release of Limbus Company in 2023. Okay, maybe not immediately. The game had very obvious problems from the get-go, most notably of which was the fact that it was gacha. Ugh, the word causes a deep stirring in my loins and not the good kind. If you've been paying attention, you'll have noticed that Project Moon was known for its story-driven single-player games, not gacha. There is a difference. When the factorial slop of gacha is so prevalent with its countless little practices made to waste both your time and your money, the caution the
Hey,
fans
it's
had towards Project
LADS.
Moon's new game was warranted. But it was all ultimately for naught, because this game managed to take the things that made all the previous games so good and packaged it into a simple enough format to be enjoyed by the casual audience that preside within this precarious.
I think it's the lack of hours needed to create a painstaking deck building thing that makes me like Limbus Company. I think that's what it is. I mean, it's technically Reverse 1999 that doesn't have a deck building thing, but I think it is a little bit more. Actually, I can't really call it more strategic because they're both strategic. It just feels different though. I really don't know what the difference is exactly though. Maybe you guys know?
Genre. And if you play the game for longer than an hour, you realize very quickly that Project Moon loves you. Yes, you heard me. Kim Jong-un specifically thanks you for playing Limbus Company. Glory
Thank
be to
you.
Limbus Company, glory be to Project Moon, and in the words of our cute CEO himself, may he attain wealth and fame almighty. If you can't tell, that's at least how it feels to be part of the community of this game at times. We want it to succeed, we want people to play it, and we want it to get even bigger and even better with every update that cycles through. Can it be predatory? Sure. Is it overtly predatory? No, I would say not at all. In fact, I would go so far as to say that despite Project Moon's motto being this big, bold, almost laughably authentic view of the CEO's vision, they really don't know how to make money. And the times when they
That's
do try
true.
to their wallets, they outright say it. For the anime, for the 3D action RPG, I give my wallet unto you, my cute CEO. Power creeps? Yeah, sure. But the units are so easy to get, whether by the decent rates or simply by farming the repeatable roguelike mode mirror dungeon, that you're able to basically get any character you want.
Mirror Dungeon.
No RNG reliance.
I gotta say, I hate Mirror Dungeon. I did a little bit of it. Or there was a time, I think, during Don Quixote's Kanto when it was starting to be released, and it wasn't fully released at the time. I was really doing my best to farm and grind Mirror Dungeon. But oh my gosh, it takes forever. Everyone's like telling me, oh, it doesn't take that long. Then why does it take so much time? Anyways, please tell me that it got better because I really hate that mode so much. I know some people really like it, but I can't stand it. Okay, anyways.
Time-gated artifact system, no smorgasbord mishmash of collectibles, no going to pity every single time, and a story that is good. Amazing.
Don Quixote, you're the best.
Absolute goddamn cinema. And this is why I made the distinction between a gacha game and a single-player game. Because while many bigger gacha games can suffer from character irrelevance, convoluted nouns you need to remember, bloated dialogue, and in-your-face unit shilling, Limbus Company draws from its roots as a narrative-driven experience and provides you simply with an excellent story-based game. There are levels to this, right? To combat character irrelevance, the main cast consists of 12 sinners, including the main character, their guide, Dundee.
He looks so scary.
Caron. I think she's autistic. Also, she drives a Limbus and is my favorite character. You pull for versions of these characters from alternate universes, and each sinner remains a mainstay in every bit of story that you get. When it comes to Naunitis, which, if you aren't familiar, is a common problem in original fictional worlds, normally diagnosed in Harry Potter notebooks of overzealous 15-year-olds who think making fake words that sound cool equals good world building.
I enjoyed it back when I was younger.
Experience. Seriously, I was always more of an Undertale kid. In fact, to prove this, let me give you a rundown of the setting in under a minute. People live in the city. Non-people live outside in the outskirts. Districts
Yeah,
compose
sounds
the
about
city,
right.
which are all named after a letter. Each district
Yeah.
contains a nest, which is the city proper, and the back streets,
Yep.
which are the slums. Each nest
Yep.
has a wing, which is a mega corporation that supports the city as a whole with its unique technology called a
Yep.
singularity. The leading body of the city is known as the head, which is comprised
Yeah.
of districts A, B, and C, no relation. Nobody really knows anything about them. You're not supposed to. People can hire
Okay.
several others to fix their problems, called fixes. Fixes can be part of offices, which are individually owned businesses, or associations, which are massive scale companies in their own right, of which there are
Yeah,
12,
sounds about
all
right.
named after a number. Fixes themselves are also graded by numbers, going from grade
Indeed.
9 to grade 1, with only the most legendary fixes being awarded a color, of which there can only be one per color at any given time. Also, abnormalities
Makes
are monsters
sense.
extracted from the mind, which were invented by L Corp. Distortions are people
Yes.
who turn into monsters because of their feelings, which was also L Corp's.
Yep.
Ego being the result of preventing your own distortion through sheer force of will. There's also another type extracted from abnormalities, taking on their properties instead of being unique to you. These concepts are all kind of linked. And time, how'd I do?
Okay.
Way to take to say it also, that's pretty good. Hopefully you got all that. And if you still think that's confusing, I challenge you to do the same with your favorite gacha game and still make it comprehensive. What Limbus does is make all the keywords commonly used ones, so you can intuit their meaning.
Now, if only they could do the same for their enemy descriptions and character descriptions or whatever. You know, sometimes I just think I should maybe just play it in Korean at this point.
And form a proper mental connection between the word and the position.
Is it better?
The physical world makes use of bird imagery and letters. The human system works on numbers and colors. Not foolproof, but you get what I mean. The worst it gets is with Lobotomy Corporation, with things like enkephalin and kagito, various other SCP-style jargon, but that's isolated over there and doesn't much affect.
Yeah, that
Limbus.
was also
Units
kind of confusing to me
don't
back in the
need to be
day.
shelled for the same reason there isn't character irrelevance. Units you pull for will be tied to the main cast through their ID. See what I mean about keywords?
Yep. I
We
have that
character
one.
that seems to only be in the story so that the company can make you pay
I just
for them.
need to get
Rather, the
manager
character from the
done.
story just so happens to be one you can pay for. Bloated dialogue? Well, it depends on your definition. If we're talking about Kanto 4, I mean, and I'll get into this in my next section where I talk about why I think this game probably isn't as big as it deserves. Is the dialogue bloated? No. It flows
No.
in conversation. Characters stay
Yep.
true to their development or current temperament. Character interactions are through.
I agree.
But there is quite a lot of it. Is it needed? I'd say so, yeah. But
Yes.
I know many a person who'd rather it wasn't so verbose or lengthy at times. For example, Kanto 8 is probably the longest Kanto released so far.
Oh, boy.
Surpassing that of Kanto 4 easily, yet I don't feel as though it's as long, you know? Especially when you're doing that dungeon in the middle. That whole section was absolutely amazing. It felt like the end of the Kanto itself, despite us only being halfway through. I believe Limbus Company does gacha the right way. Yes, it's a gacha
I agree.
to make money. Yes, it's a little predatory, but at its heart, it's a video game. It's an experience. It's a story. And that comes before the attempts Project Moon makes to rake in the dollars. You can say whatever you want about companies being all inherently evil, but at the very least, when one is authentic and honest, it breeds a kind of respect almost equivalent to loyalty. Because that's what it feels as though Project Moon, the indie video game company, wants. Not
I do think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of players really like Project Moon is because they're like too honest to a fault. Like typically companies wouldn't say like, oh, we need money. Please, pay us to do this one thing that we want to do, like an anime. Because it makes them perhaps in their minds seem desperate or pathetic or something along those lines. But I actually do think it works out well in this case, though, because it's not a game that feels predatory and it's not a game that's, I guess, at its heart, greedy. Like the gacha system, obviously, there's like different opinions on it. I do think that it's fine, but I know there's a lot of people who dislike it. But I do think that because the game itself does not ask for money and you can basically get everything just by farming and playing the game, it doesn't feel predatory. And so when a company says they want money, it's funny because they could just do it by making it predatory, but they don't, which is why the players are more willing to support the company and actually buy like the battle pass or buy packages and things like that. Because why not? The game itself isn't predatory, then you might as well show support in other ways by actually buying the battle pass or doing something along those lines. It just feels good because then you feel like you're part of the company too and that you're helping them grow, but they're thanking you by not making the game as predatory as before, or at least that's how I feel like is the reason why a lot of people aren't against, or I guess holding up pitchforks against the company or something along those lines, except for those those incidents that you guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah, aside from that.
Your wallet. And nothing is more authentic than going live as the CEO of your company with your VTuber model, playing your own roguelike mode, and feeding your most hated unit to the man-eating Christmas goblins because you regret making him so strong. With all my praise out of the way, I think it's about time to talk about the game's shortcomings, at least when it comes to general popularity and widespread appeal. While I am very much aware that PM is much more than Limbus Company, it's their most profitable investment, so I'm going to keep the scope limited to that game, if you'll forgive me. I'll keep it simple. Limbus Company doesn't turn heads. For the same reason that Library of Arena didn't turn heads. Despite it being low-key inspired by famous pieces of literature, let's
people
be
don't
real, no one gives an absolute flying fuck about Wuthering Heights.
Yeah, I guess so.
Damien. What? This is just gay erotica. Oh, wait, that's the Wattpad version. Apparently the version is not so far off. LobCorp was SCP-inspired, tapping into the immense online presence of the SCP Foundation's community, whether it be the die-hard fans and cult following, or the general knowers, as it were. Limbus Company doesn't have that privilege. Well, unless you count on your fingers the members of Inan's book club. Further expanding on that, the general aesthetic of the game isn't one you'd typically call attractive. Perhaps to a certain
I love
audience,
it, though.
It's not like I'd call Darkest Dungeon, Fear and Hunger, and Wizardry attractive. In contrast to saturated,
but that's also true. It's not really.
The brim with glitter, lights, and rainbows.
Yeah, it's not really
you'll see in Limbus Company
beautiful.
What a person's guts look like as they splatter all over your screen.
Wonderful.
Like the is drab and depressing. Grays, whites, and black overpower much of the scenery, and where it doesn't, sterile whites in areas like.
Surprisingly, I mean, there are good things about games that have like the pretty aesthetic, or like more like cartoonish or slice of life anime type of prettiness, I guess, because it makes it easier for someone like me who has motion sickness to actually go through the world if it's actually bright. But for visual novel type of games, I do think it's great if there's more variety on how they look. So games like Punishing Grey Raven or Limbus Company or Arknights doesn't really need that like pretty sparkliness in their artwork. And that's also why I tend to gravitate towards those. One, because I won't get motion sick for sure. But two, you can just experience the world at a more gritty, raw level compared to one that seems more perfect, if that makes sense.
The nests contribute to the powerful dystopian nature of a divided populace united only in the ways of making one another suffer. And if we're talking about how things look, I can pivot over to the gacha game equivalent of jingling keys in front of your face. Fan service. It has practically zero. In the sexual sense, at least. There's actually a lot
I like that about the game.
If you're a fan of the studio's works, you'll like a lot of the plot lines brought up in the game, but Limbus
Agree.
isn't exactly the type of video game you'd call.
I do have to say, I do like fan service. Like, I don't have a problem with it considering the type of animes that I watched back in the day. I watched everything. What was I thinking? Back in middle school. But I have no problems with it. It's just that when there's too many games that have fan service, you kind of get bored. I'm not really sure how to explain. Like, I know for some people, they just really like the fan service and it doesn't matter how much or things that they consume. As long as they get fan service, they're happy. But for me, I kind of need a variety of like different styles and focuses. And when a game doesn't focus at all on fan service, it feels very refreshing and it stands out in my mind a lot more compared to the ones that are fan servicey, I guess. Not that there's anything wrong with fan service again, but there are days when I just don't really want to see something like that. And the fact that there is a game, gacha game in particular, that is not so fan servicey and it's like very raw and gritty, just like real life, but also not. It just feels good. And I do wonder if that's how a lot of people feel when they play games that aren't, I guess, anime-ish looking or whatnot.
Guna fuel. I hate that word. Fuck you, Game Grumps. Season 5 perhaps gave us the more risque IDs in the series in Princess Roger and Kurokoma Ishmael. By risque, I mean she's got her cleavage out, and even then you can count the number of IDs that show even that.
Yeah, they look cool.
The others probably bit. Despite having adult themes, Project Moon doesn't really divulge in anything sexually explicit, or even really utilize
That's another thing I really like, the fact that it's not diving into topics that are explicit in that sense. I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but I like having a variety of games that don't actually focus on that kind of aspect all the time. There are plenty of those types if you really want it. Itchy games. But for gacha games, it's a lot nicer to have something where I could just pull it up and it's really dark regarding the story, but it doesn't really like dabble into that area, if you know what I mean.
Sex appeal in any way. The main method of dress for all denizens of the city is some form of suit after all. That's not a bad thing, not really, but when you consider the genre in which Limbus Company has planted its feet in, you can get an idea of why it's kind of negative in some way. Guna fuel makes our hamster ball turn, and in the absence of it, less people flock inward to keep it rolling. Commonly, the idea of sexy equals bad because popular is used. Well, there's no sexy here. You want to come in and try this out? No?
Actually cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Sex sells. Limbus, arguably, doesn't. Without it, less people are drawn in unless they have prior knowledge of the universe or game. And even
That's
when
true.
a straggler finds their way in, the sheer walls of
Like
text
me.
you must endeavor do have a habit of making them turn right back around. When your average gacha game might look like this can be a little overwhelming. Boxes of text flying around faster than a crackhead on a fix, coins ding-a-ling-linging, and Wild Hunt Heathcliff cackling like he knows what your search history looks like. Are we sure we're not playing Lobotomy Cobra? I'm sure. What are these things on the bottom? Why are there so many arrows flying around? What do all these statuses mean? God, reading? In my story-driven gacha game? Project Moon has never made that game super intuitive.
But there is a difference between having to read a lot and then having to read a lot of bloated text, if you know what I mean.
Let's say. They've always had problems with things being more complicated than they make it out to be, putting emphasis on the wrong things, or outright not explaining particular mechanics. Could you believe I didn't know how to—
That's what I mean!
Halfway through Canto 4.
This just proves that I was right.
What do all these statuses mean? God, reading? In my story-driven gacha game? Blah. Project Moon has never made that game super intuitive, let's say. They've always
That was my problem. They would not explain things and then they expect you to get it, especially for a boss that you like encounter for the first time. It just felt like it was impossible to beat because I didn't understand the terms they were using and it just wasn't intuitive enough for someone like me unless I am able to like look it up and then see what other people are saying about it, then maybe. But that was one of the biggest things that was extremely hard for me, especially in the later, I guess, bosses that I had to encounter. And that's also why I had to have people backseat me because I didn't understand what was going on. That was one of my biggest frustrations. But as I was saying earlier, there's a difference between reading text and reading bloated text. And I think despite the fact that there is a lot of words in the Limbus Company's story, it doesn't feel bloated. Like, even if a character is, I guess, mysterious or they speak in riddles, it doesn't feel overdone. So it feels more like, okay, so that character is always like that. But it still sounds like they're actually like talking normally at the same time, even if you don't know what the heck they're talking about.
had problems with things being more complicated than they make it out to be, putting emphasis on the wrong things, or outright not explaining particular mechanics. Can you believe I didn't know how to offset guards until halfway through Canto 4? The answer is yes, you probably could. The tutorial is like, because they make it seem more like Candy Crush.
I do know that the tutorial, I know I said it in the first video where I watched someone play the tutorial, and it was a lot more well done. And I kind of wish that they had it fixed by the time I played it. That makes me so sad. I feel like I have to like erase everything that I remembered from before I played it and then iterate it into my head somehow.
Rush than anything else. Seriously, resonance is only important for like 2 teams in the entire game. Speaking truthfully, the game is about as hard as it looks, but not as difficult as you think. By that, I mean you just have to read passives, kits, bosses, maybe a bit of mental.
But the problem is that the passives aren't intuitive to understand.
maths for Clash Power if you're feeling up to it, or just watch these videos by SU. But if we're at that point, then yes, there probably is a reason why the game is considered a little overwhelming to new players. I will say, people overblow the difficulty of this game to an elitist level at times, but a basic understanding of how clashing and speed works is all it takes to clear the contents of the story. Speaking of the story, let's touch on that. It's long. Not as long as
It's great.
Arc Knights. I think that story is well surpassed the
Arc
the fucking
Knights.
Bible. Hell, I wouldn't even call this story lengthy in general, but it may feel that way because it's not 3D. It doesn't have animations, you aren't going around talking to NPCs.
I don't know, I read Punishing Graven, which is also pretty long, and you know, there's no talking either. There's no voice. And there's no animations. Except maybe like 3 out of 20 or 19 chapters. Or no, maybe there was like 5 actually. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh. It was like 5. But I don't really mind because I like reading stories. My problem is more along the lines of enemy passives and character skills. I feel like when I'm recording my intervallo, I'm gonna have to like just have a notebook next to me and just write things down at this point. Because I can't remember stuff easily either. That's another problem I had like when I was streaming, is that I couldn't like write things down because I had to like just get through it. But I wish not to mention, I didn't really get a full understanding of the game. I kind of wish I had like a notebook or something to write on so I can remember like what the enemies' passives are, how the IDs work. It was just really frustrating for me at the time, which is why I'm going to be recording it instead of streaming it this time.
You are playing a visual novel with combat nodes in the place of choices.
Yes, it's great.
Through that is the interest hopefully bred through the concept of the universe and a connection to the characters and the will to see their stories and development. It does
Oh,
suffer
for
a little
sure.
from the gacha game curse of only getting good halfway in, but it hardly takes any time relatively. Kanto 1 suffers from being the first Kanto and so needs to establish character dynamics.
I really like Kanto 1. I think I struggled a lot with Kanto 2, but I have a bigger appreciation for it now after taking my break. And then Kanto 3 was like one of my favorites. Kanto 4 was fine. And actually, I really like the Kantos after that.
Dynamics, villains, stakes, etc. Kanto 2 suffers because the main focus character doesn't really resolve anything by the end of it, and Kanto 3 is where the game really hits its stride and finds its formula. The sinner must wholly confront their past, face their trauma, and realize themselves by the end of it. If you're a Project Moon fan, you know that this is a recipe for success. Kanto 4
Yes.
is long, wordy, but
So good.
emotional. Kanto 5 is hate-filled, aggressive.
That was my favorite.
Kanto 6 is sad, dreary, but
Yes.
resolute. Kanto 7
Beautiful.
is cynical, crushing, but uplifting. And Kanto 8 so far is
was-
just as amazing as its predecessors.
Okay,
Dare I
don't say anything. Look away, look
despite
away. I'm not gonna look at it. Keep going, keep going. Okay.
An amazing piece of narrative writing.
I feel like I was gonna hear spoilers.
Think Solo Leveling beating out Freerun or Apothecary Diaries. Hell, even the new series of Bleach. More relevant, think Wuthering Waves, whose appreciation is admittedly skewed by just how cool Rover is. A majority of
Hey, that's not really true. Like, if you actually read the lore and the story, Rover does have his flaws, and especially seen in 2.5 if you played it. But overall, I mean, even I do understand what they mean, but like, anyways, I know he means like the community is focused more on how cool Rover is and how like they're aura farming or whatever, but so it's made by the same people who made Punishing Grey Raven. Commandant is cool, but in the end you realize that Commandant is still human for a reason. Or yeah, anyways. Basically what I'm saying is that we're speaking too soon for Wuthering Waves. I think equivalent for the 2.5 is like EX04 chapter, which is like pretty early on in Punishing Graven. So I don't know. I do think that while Wuthering Waves is and Kuro Games is not like Project Moon when it comes to the type of writing that they do, the characters that they release, and the aesthetics that they like, but I do think that it shouldn't be focused so much on how the community views the game, but rather the game itself. I don't really like basing a game's I guess, quality on the community along with the story. Because then the memes end up becoming reality to many people who haven't actually played the game, which is why they don't play it. And I think that's one of the problems I'm seeing recently, where games are not treated as games, but rather a part of someone's identity, if that makes sense. And while I do understand why they're like that, at the same time, I want to go, please go touch some grass. I'm just joking. But in any case, I do understand and I do agree with them to some degree on the whole thing. That was spoilers, wasn't it?
Waves, whose appreciation is admittedly skewed by just how cool Rover is. A majority of people don't want this, they want this. And while that's a-okay and fine diddly-do, it is a little disheartening. And perhaps greater than all those points is this one. Project Moon has no representation in the West.
I think another problem is that Limbus Company doesn't have an English dub. Personally, I have no problems because I know Korean, because I am Korean American. But for many people, a lot of them either never watched Korean dramas or Korean variety shows or have consumed anything Korean for the most part. Those people tend to be a lot more resistant to listening to things in Korean. Even if a game was already made in Korean or is from Korea, they just prefer Japanese or English. Nothing wrong with that, but it does make it difficult for new developers from Korea to reach out and grow in the West if they're so resistant against, listening to things in Korean. Because, technically Project Moon is not like a rich company and they're not like bought out by some vtuber company or whatever, conglomerate or whatever. So obviously they're not going to be able to have so much money to hire a bunch of English dub people. At that point, it's better for them to focus on the gameplay, the story, and the artwork, personally speaking. But I do think that the lack of English dub and lack of Japanese dub is also one of the reasons why it just doesn't have enough representation in the West.
Now, let me correct myself. There is representation in the West, just not conventional representation. I'll get to it. Have you ever seen a Limbus Company ad? A Limbus Company sponsor? Maybe
definitely not.
If you're lucky, like a whisper in the wind. Marketing, apparently, isn't Project Moon's strong suit. That much is clearly a casual gacha player if they know what Limbus Company is. I'd give it...
I do have to ask though, would you prefer a company to focus so much on marketing that they don't have enough resources to really make the game good? Or would you prefer the game to be really good but not have as much marketing? So I think that's one of the struggles that a lot of games have, is that some companies would either put so much effort and money into marketing to the point that their game ends up becoming kind of bland. Not bland, but like it's not able to improve or have a higher quality because of the amount of money they spend on marketing. Personally, I'd prefer the latter, where they spend more money on continuing to improve the game and then let the fandom, if they're passionate enough, to be more engaged and spread the word about the game everywhere that they can. Because one of the things that my marketing professor has told me back in college when I was a business major was that the most powerful form of marketing is the word of mouth. And there is good parts about putting a lot of money into marketing, because if you hear about it anywhere and you see it, then that's all you're going to think of whenever you think of games. But at the same time, people are more likely to play a game if they're hearing it from someone they know and who enjoys it. So I quite am leaning more towards the latter, but I do wonder what you guys think. Let me know down below.
Like a 3070 shot. This isn't a fair comparison, but I'm gonna make it anyway. I've seen Ju Yuen's ass enough times on my desktop to make me say what Google thinks of me as a person. I've seen Faust. Actually, I haven't, because they don't do ads. Not only that, but Limbus is only in Korean. No English dub.
Ah, yeah, that's what I
I
said.
don't want to play it because it's in Korean and
Yeah.
only in Korean. I know this because it's the reason I originally didn't play the game.
See,
And
there we
while it's
go.
not an issue for me anymore. I love the Korean voice acting actually. Anime adjacents will have a harder time integrating themselves, which, let's be real,
It's kind of funny though that people are so against Korean because I'm pretty sure when they first watched an anime, it's probably in Japanese unless they watched it on TV, which has English dub. And if that's the case, then they have no right to say that Korean is whatever because you watch anime in Japanese with English subtitles, then you could do it with Korean. That's my opinion though. I mean, I understand the people who, you know, play the game but are doing other things and so they need to hear it in English so they can understand. But if you're not doing that, then you really should be able to play the game at least once with the English text and Korean audio. Like, that's not going to kill you. It's like playing a game with on mute, but instead you're actually just hearing in Korean. Or maybe it's not really that. I don't know, actually. But that's just personally how I feel. Like, if you watched anime in Japanese and have read English, there's no way that you knew Japanese from the start unless you actually took Japanese class and or lived in Japan. Like, there is no way that you would have watched anime knowing what the heck they're saying with the English text subtitles down there. Like, if you can do that, then you should be able to play this game in Korean audio with English text. It's like looking at subtitles. Now, I get the only thing that they might have trouble with is understanding when a sentence ends because, let's be real, it's not like the sprites are going to be opening their mouths and like showing that they're going to be done. And quite frankly, I believe Limbus Company also has like this thing where the text is just already done, but then the character's not finished speaking. And so you might accidentally click at that point if you don't know Korean. That makes sense, but at least you will be able to enjoy the voice acting, you know? And I do get it for some streamers that might not be possible since, let's be honest, if you're having to listen to the audio and then read it, it's gonna take a long time. Your stream is gonna be like extremely long. And from what I remember, the cantos get longer and longer and longer and longer, and it just gets so exhausting if you don't have it time to stop. At least that was my experience. But yeah, that's just how I personally feel. Like, if you're able to listen to Japanese and be able to read the subtitles, then you really should not you have no excuse. You might say, oh, Korean doesn't sound good to me. Okay, that I can maybe understand, but you should be able to at least give it a chance, right? I mean, to be honest, like Korean, like the sentence structure is pretty much the same as Japanese. There are some words in Japanese and Korean that are sounding pretty similar with the same meaning. So if you say that Korean sounds bad, then I don't know. I mean, I guess I could understand, but at the same time, like, they'd be pretty close too, to some degree. I mean, there's just like hatred between the two countries' government, I suppose, but like, if you just look at language, structure, and grammar and all that, it's pretty similar. Please don't cancel me or kill me over saying that, but if you just look at it objectively from like grammar structure, it is basically the same. Like, verb is at the end, subject, object, verb. Like, that's the basic sentence structure for both languages. Let's continue.
Are the main audience for gacha games. Project Moon doesn't push for this game for whatever reason. I wholeheartedly believe Limbus can be the gacha game. Like how Genshin or HSR is the biggest. Like how ZZZ is the goonest. It's hardly predatory, offers probably the most interesting setting in all of gachas, period, and feels unique in its themes and
I think Limbus Company does have an interesting setting. I do agree with that. I do think, though, that Punishing Graven also has a very interesting setting. Both of them are pretty much the true representation of science fiction, I believe, which is why I enjoy it. But I do wonder what everyone else's opinions are on whether you like Limbus Company settings or if you prefer different game settings. Do let me know down below, and the themes as well.
Storytelling, however, with the lack of pushing, it remains under the Wuthering Waves.
Yeah, that's
A hidden gem
true.
on the cusp of being revealed. But this lack of clear representation has found a crack in the wall, a glitch in the system. One could say,
What
a
is
hidden
that?
pipeline. The Roblox to Limbus Company pipeline is a very real thing.
Roblox.
Let's talk about it. Roblox is a site where players create their own games for other players to enjoy. Marketed more so towards kids, it's a platform powered by the players, sort of like Steam or Itch.io with a more personal twist and many more limitations. And Groom, allow me to emphasize for a fact,
What?
this is a platform where users are entirely responsible for other users' experiences. Despite
Yeah, that's
Roblox
pretty
being
cool.
primarily for children, there exists many a community of older Roblox players who've cultivated a fair few games for a more developed audience. Roleplay groups with your favorite anime, show, or interest. Closed community games that require you to know a guy who knows a guy so you get to be a grunt in another person's story. Complex games complete with high-octane
Wow.
fighting, complex deck building, and permadeath mechanics with whole server-wide PvP wars that destroy your bandwidth to top it all off. All this
Is there
to
even
say,
a limitation?
Project Moon, a studio for a more mature audience, somehow wormed its way into these communities through the odd fan or two. It started maybe with a few tongue-in-cheek references in a game. It grew to adding weapons.
I think I know where this is going. So I assume because this is a platform that's mostly kids, it ends up bringing kids into Limbus Company, perhaps? I mean, at the same time, is that even... I guess it's possible that they would be able to download Limbus Company and play it. Kind of iffy about that.
From Lobotomy Corporation or Library of Arena in another, then another. Maybe in a game less
Or are there actually a lot of adults playing Roblox too? Because I'm not really familiar, so you guys will have to educate me. But yeah, I'm kind of curious.
serious for a younger audience. Then another, maybe a whole character or two this time. Multiple iterations of the same thing repeated, like IDs from Mirror World spreading
Wow.
further and further, at times being added simply because these things were rad rather than because they liked the source material. At this point, one might ask, why not make a game? Well, they did. Limbus Game, a battleground where you can
Oh
find
my
your
gosh.
favorite ID. Archived, an MMO-style RPG taking place in the city where you can challenge the library, join an association, make an office, realize your own ego, much like the characters from the games it was based on. People thought, oh, this is cool, I wonder where it's from. And before you knew it, Project Moon had somehow grown to be represented in Roblox, of all places. Sakura Stand, Illusions, Item Asylum, Forsaken, a Dead by
I guess it was
Daylight style game
done
that
good.
popular on the platform with over 150 concurrents. Has a skin
Wow.
based on a character from Limbus using a remix of Millie's track. And if the designs weren't enough to make people think it was cool, then the music sure as hell did.
Scream if you love Millie.
It cannot be understated how much influence this kind of representation has had on Limbus Company's popularity. And I know this because I found out about Limbus again from Roblox.
Oh.
Yes, I'm a grown man who still plays Roblox. Get over it. We all do if you grew up at a certain
I mean-
age. It was cool. And if you paid attention to what I was saying before, you'll know that is enough. Such representation, however, is a double-edged sword.
Okay, so we're gonna
Kids
talk about
ruin
it.
everything. Fandoms, communities,
Eh.
marriages. They're dumb, easily influenced, unfunny, and most of all, act like they know things they don't. But it's the hand the community was dealt. It didn't help that the Project Moon universe caters to the lowest common denominator, aka power scalers with the very existence of fixes. But, as I said earlier, the keywords are easy to understand, and the concepts are grim. That is, interesting at a base level. The trickle-down effect of an intended audience, combined with a bit of reproduction and a very lucky inclusion and subsequent boom of a game on a children's platform, has allowed Limbus Company to be contracted with a very severe case of BAFPUMs, baby's first problematic piece of media syndrome.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll workshop it. Thus, the gatekeeping began, the community became more obnoxious, which, let's be real, you all were already, and a bad rep started to be guarded. We were, after all, refugees from Roblox. Not the greatest tag, I'll say. At least the memes got better. And yet, despite this double-edged sword, I could never really condemn my brethren because, in the end, we were what the community needed. We were the glue. No, we were the representation.
Okay.
Younger fans, like it or not,
hey, this is what I said earlier. Word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. The more you do word of mouth, the more there's more trust in the product that you're recommending to someone that you know. It's why a lot of companies put a lot of money into branding and marketing so that they can get the word out. And the more people know of it and the more they recommend it to others, the more powerful and the more money that they can get.
Are more zealous. They make for good cult material, perhaps to a detriment.
I
at times,
suppose.
but if Project Moon wasn't going to go the full 9 yards for their game, these ones sure will. They'll badger, they'll annoy, they'll backseat, they'll nitpick, they'll wrongly quote, they'll shill this game, and I'm pretty sure half of them have never even played it. Should they even know about the game in the first place? Well, you know, but how are we gonna stop them? And that's sort of what I want to get at. Attention is only good for the community. I talked about sponsors. Well, Project Moon actually did sponsor someone. Shirakami Fubuki from Hololive. Yes, that one. In terms of representation, popular VTubers like Himemi Array and to a lesser extent Tenma Miami are stalwart bastions for the Project Moon games. Forgoing the facade of a pixelated visage, Lakari, notorious Blue Archive fan, played through all of Lobotomy Corporation, God rest his soul,
Wow.
Library of Arena to upwards of 2,000 concurrent. Genazad played all the way through to Kanto 7 as of writing this video to nearly the same amount. And hate him or absolutely despise him, Tectone, the bold, angry Genshin demon from the year 2000,
Demon.
punished all Limbus company fans with his presence as he rose from hell to face us. Thank God he only played until Kanto 4. And I'll say it again, this is only good for the growth of the community, to get the global recognition I feel like we all think it deserves. I recall the second anniversary, when I first revised this script, and I remember feeling disappointed. There was no massive marketing push, there was no big banner to bring people in, just 2 pretty cool IDs and a billboard in Akihabara. It's clear that Kim Ji-hoon cares a lot about the people who
Hey, the Akihabara one is pretty good, okay?
like his games and his universe. From their humble start to the multiple times where he feels as though he's let down his community, stemming from as early as the translator scam incident from Lobcorp, he seems to want to take things
I'm not
slow
surprised.
and easy now. He cares so much that it even negatively affects Limbus company, backtracking on a much-needed nerf to an ID that the testing team sloppily allowed to deal 400 single-target true damage minimum per turn. Unprecedented. Even when the compensation was full refunds to anyone who spent on the banner, 1.5 IDs of your choosing, a guaranteed 3-star 10-pull ticket, and you got to keep the unit. He still backtracked when people outraged. He apologized profusely. Despite these units in this game,
This is one thing that kind of annoys me is when people complain so much and even though they fixed it and you got a refund basically, you still complain. You guys, companies, I know companies are basically a bit evil or whatever and it's annoying and they probably earn enough money so who cares, but I just don't understand why people can't be more mature about it. Like if you got what you needed and it's been fixed, then you don't need to push more. Oh, that's just something that I really don't understand those people. I mean, do you? Unless like they barely like refunded anything or did a pretty bad like adjustment, like okay, I understand if you're gonna complain at that point and still complain. If that's not the case, then why are you complaining so hard? You're just wasting your time. Just go touch grass. That's just gonna be my motto from now on.
costing infinitely less comparative to games like Genshin or Wuwa, because I guess even the game that still puts the story first will be treated as a gacha at the end of the day. People saw it as him going back on his word to the community with regard to the Ring Sang nerfs, another OP unit from the start of the game, and he prioritized that bond with his fans over the health of the game itself. Mouse truly thrust into the light that Project Moon's biggest strength and their biggest curse are their fans. Even so,
I feel like
we, as
that's everything.
fans, still want to see this game grow and succeed. If Project Moon wants to take it slow with marketing and publicity and everything else, well, the people will take it into their own hands, on accident or otherwise, even if it garners a certain label at this point. And it is growing. It's about twice as popular as when I first drafted this script in early January, but one does have to wonder what that means for the future of the game. Much like the message of their games, it is now up to the people. The seeds have been sown, and it is up to us to help them bloom. Man, that is a cheesy way to end this video. Bye-bye.
I thought it was good. I'm gonna wait for it to finish first before giving my last final thoughts about this. So I really enjoyed this video, first and foremost. I really liked how thoughtful everything was, and it introduced a lot of things I actually didn't know, like the whole Roblox thing. I do wonder though that if the more the community grows, obviously, or actually no, let me take a step back. So the stigma that the community has is that they're a bunch of backseaters and are annoying and all that stuff, but in reality, I do feel like that's basically every game fandom. It's more so an effect or result of a community growing too big or more than it is originally. At least that's my first thought about it. I did, let me see. So I feel like he didn't really go too much into depth about the negative effects of the kids joining the fandom. I do wonder, because the people that I talk to in my streams for Limbus Company actually didn't feel like a lot of them were young, if that makes sense. Like they actually played the games, the single player games, and then were clearly knowledgeable about the Limbus Company game too. So I do wonder if that younger fans that he talked about are more so things that other people have experienced so far. Like, do let me know, because I know you guys probably watched every single person's Limbus Company live stream at this point, but have you met actual like people in the chat who were actually young and clearly didn't know the game? Quite curious if that really is true, because it might just be a hyper focus where you're experiencing it, like for example on Twitter or something, and I'm pretty sure there's lots of young people on Twitter, but is he or is someone experiencing more of the younger fans in that area, or is it actually in the streams and in the chat? Quite curious about that, because for me, I haven't really had that bad of an experience with the people in my chat for Limbus Company. Actually, you guys were great. I was very happy. Whenever I asked you guys to help backseat, it was wonderful. And you guys also enjoyed the story with me, and it was really fun discussing about the character development and how much it impacts everyone's lives, and even in reality, how it can help you understand and cope and just move on and go forth in your life. I think those were the biggest parts that I missed most about streaming and going through Limbus Company. But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. It was very informative, and it brought a lot of new things for me to think about. What are your thoughts on the video? Did you enjoy it? If you did, then make sure to support their video by going to the original video, and you know the drill. But if you did enjoy my reaction to this video and you have a video you'd like to recommend to me, and especially if it's Project Moon, go for it. And it could be, I guess, animations that people have made or anything along those lines. I would love to see it and experience it with you. Do let me know down below in the comments if you would like to see more of this kind of content. And if you enjoyed it again, make sure to give it a like, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!